SAFE is Stop Abuse for Everyone, which is located in Texas. So again, this is a curriculum that I'm going to be going over with you guys today. You know, you can look it up and possibly purchase it for your own agency. But Beyond Labels is all about working with abuse survivors and mental health, disability, and also substance abuse. Because when it comes to survivors of any type of abuse, it could be DV, SA, trafficking, it's very different when it comes to adding in mental health and also disabilities and also substance abuse. So those three things we're going to talk about today. We're going to really dive into those things. Again, I'm Samantha, founder of Team Teal 365. Next slide, please. The overview. I want to make sure that I, again, just refer back to the curriculum that I'm just going to be using, Beyond Labels, and how they explore the relationships between domestic violence and, again, sexual violence and the mental health, along with substance abuse. And I know you guys probably are wondering why. I think it's very important that we understand that the teens that we work with, or even the adults that you work with, when it comes to substance abuse, that's usually something that's trying to suppress a pain, trying to suppress a trauma, trying to suppress something that has happened in their life, other than maybe the impulse that they're currently doing. So this guy will help you with domestic violence and sexual assault if you're working in those areas. We hope that this will improve the responses that you guys use, because again, throughout this workshop, I want you guys to understand that you guys are the first responders. We're the first responders because, again, we are under a state of emergency in the state of Wisconsin. Let's be serious, around DV and around SA. So when you put mental health and disabilities into that, we got to understand that they're all related to violence and abuse, right? They're all related to violence and abuse. It's based on the wisdom of survivors. So when you think about this curriculum that I'm going to be going over today, all of the information that they were able to gather, they were able to get that from survivors. It actually has national leaders and crisis services and trauma recovery and domestic violence and sexual assault professionals. So while I'm going over this curriculum, understand that it's geared towards a specific audience. And if you have any questions throughout my presentation, or if I'm talking too fast, or if I'm talking too much, please just let me know in the comments, because I'm going to have some little interactions for you guys throughout my PowerPoint, because that's what we should do. I want to make sure that everyone that's on the call is actually in the conversation. So I'm not gonna, boggle you guys down with a lot of information. I'm sure you know enough already, but 4 things that I want to make sure that we talk about is understanding the Beyond Labels, which is, it's just the labels for me. And I say that as a figure of speech, because for me, there's always something that we want to label a person, schizophrenia, bipolar, crazy, dumb, victim, this, that, the other thing. But it's very rare that we ever just call them for who and what they are, rather than what they're going through or what they're dealing with. I also want to talk about the barriers and the blessings that comes along with those things. There are going to be some barriers that you guys face and that we face dealing with the community that has disabilities, mental health, and substance abuse issues, because there's barriers because they don't always seem like they fit in, right? So we'll talk about that. And then I just put blessings because there's always something at the light of the tunnel, right? So there's always something that is a blessing, or that is a gift to someone that you're going to be working with, even if that's just them coming to a visit, right? So when we talk about the outcomes are always really important. But in order to get outcomes, you need to have those visits, right? Because outcomes versus never coming, which is very serious. Because if they're not coming to the groups, or if they're not coming to your agency, or if they don't know about your agency, that means there will never be outcomes, because they're not physically coming there. And then we'll go over some resources and some different agencies around the state, which are probably on the line or probably a part of the conference this last couple of days. Icebreaker, yay. I know you guys want to get in that chat. Got something for you. Icebreaker in the chat. I ask that all participants think of this. Beyond labels, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? I'll give you 30 seconds. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the words beyond labels? What do you think? Everyone in the chat, if you don't mind. Yes, non-judgmental, treating everyone equally, people matter, freedom. Yes, transcending judgment. Yes, equal. Yes, open-minded. We're all the same. Yeah. Treating everyone equally. Yes, 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 yes. Looking at someone as, exactly. Looking into someone. Oh, yeah, yeah. See, that's the kind of conversation I want you guys to think about. Exactly. Yeah. How about that? Pose another question. I didn't catch the name, but at what age did you start making these decisions around the labels that we're going to talk about today? I want you guys to think about that too. Exactly. Seeing yourself as others. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Trends and culture and labels in our workplaces and spaces. Coping mechanism. It's easier. Yes. It's easy for the negativity. It's an addiction. It's like an ulcer, it just eats away at people. So yes, beyond labels. Let's get beyond those labels because individuals are more than that. Thank you for participating. I am so, I love the interaction because again, I'm so used to real tangible people and tangible things. So thank you guys for playing a sport and getting in that chat because that keeps you right here in the now with me. What I'm doing, you're a part of it. Next slide, please. Sounds so professional with the next slide, please. Love it. So, understanding the labels, like we just talked about in the chat, and that's one thing about knowing your gift and knowing what you do. People first, always people first. Samantha, Robin, this person, that person. We want to treat them as an individual, not as a number. So a person who survived a trauma or a person with mental health or disability or a diagnosis. Why do we always have to go right to that? So I wanted to define what a person is, who they are, what they survive, what they might have, and if they have a diagnosis. That doesn't mean that you need to classify them as that particular No, let's not. Let's just call them who they are. How about we, instead of labeling them as mentally ill or insane or crazy or bonkers or suffering from mental illness, how about we give them something else? Like I just said, a person who survived a trauma or a person with mental health disability or mental health diagnosis. How about we scratch the whole thing of insane, crazy, bonkers, suffering? Can we just say that they're a person first? Start there. A person. Not a mental ill person, not a insane, not a this, but a person. Just a person. Number 2, instead of labeling them as drunk, alcoholic, junkie, crackhead, meth head, pillhead, whatever you want to call it, people tend to make up words as they go to their liking, to disregard another human being. Instead of saying those words, how about we use a person with a substance abuse issue or substance abuse diagnosis? Why not that? How about that? Or how about a person, fill in the blank? Samantha, Robin. Number 3, how about instead of using borderline, and the reason why I wanted to use instead of using is because sometimes when I work with youth, they use these words, or they'll say she's bipolar, or she's crazy, or he's crazy, or I'm crazy, and I need to take my pills and I need to do that. And I said, yeah, a lot of us, I grew up for a very long time without being diagnosed with ADHD. But ask my family, yeah, I have it, and I had it, and I'll probably have it for the rest of my life. But that's all right. Like, that doesn't judge who you are. It's a part of your character. It's a part of your specialness. It's a part of your light, you know? So instead of labeling them as borderline or crazy or mentally ill or junkie or alcoholic, put a name on it, you know? They're a person. You know, they survived something. They're coming to your space for something. And I think it's so much easier to label them as crazy, schizophrenic, borderline, instead of getting to the underneath problem. Because sometimes they're not really there for the problem when they're at your particular agency or your service. It might be something that you might have to unpack down the line, you know, but you don't want to end that relationship by saying the wrong words, right? Because it's very hard to take words back. So it's very smart to use the right words, you know, and ask your clients, ask the people that's coming to your agency that has different issues going on in their life that they survived, that they thrived through, even if that's thriving to come to your meeting, thriving to come to a support group, you know, thank them for that. Thank them as a person, you know, because it's really important, because they're in your care, in your agency for a reason, you know, and sometimes they need a little bit more than just what the treatment plan says, you know. Sometimes they would like to be treated more than just what's used to happening or what the book says that will happen during these steps, you know. So be open to everything doesn't have to be labeled. It can be personalized for each individual person as they go through their individual treatment plan and process with healing, because it's not easy, but you don't want to say the wrong word and then that healing never shows up, or that healing is derailed because their trust with you is broken, or with someone at your agency is broken just because of the verbiage that you're using. And it might work on another client, but it might not work on Samantha, a specific client. So just be open and understand that labels matter, and understanding the differences. And you can be saying the same exact thing, but just in the way you word it. And that's just like in day-to-day life, you know? Somebody could say, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to step on your shoe." Or they can say, "Excuse," completely different energy, completely different energy. So just think about that. Completely same thing, same scenario, different energy, different response, different words, different impact. Okay. Again, any questions, let me know. Right in the chat. You know, this is just us. We're just having a good time. Next slide, please. So now, yeah, let's get more into the first responder conversation. Now, I specifically use this PowerPoint graphic for a reason, because healing is different. And it comes, you know, it's kind of electric, you know, things happen, parts move, things are different. So when you think about the healing and through relationships and through different trauma and through different disabilities and mental health, and then you add in substance abuse, remember that all these little parts fit a whole, right? All the parts of this, what you see in this picture right here in this slide, all of this fits to something, to bring to life something else, right? So it's the reason behind everything that we do. Okay, anyway, healing through relationships, that's very important. We want to make sure that we, you know, really hone in on that, because the healing process is a journey. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a, you know, wake up one day and everything's better. That's happened to a few people, but normally it's healing. It's a process. It's an ongoing journey. And I hope that people continue to take it and just take the right tools and people with them. Okay, so when we think about trauma work, it, you know, it transcends diagnostic labels, recognizing human difficulties as creative, right? adaptive, responsive, rather than as a sign of illness. So when we think about the trauma work that we do and that your clients are doing, we want to think of it in a more like creative way, right? Difficulties will happen, things will happen, but instead of it being a sign of illness, how about we recognize that we're all different, we're all wired different, we all heal different, we all suppress things differently, we communicate them differently, um, we show signs of illness and weaknesses in different spaces and different places, and just understanding how trauma transcends. It's not a one fit all, you know. That's just like survivors and victims and abusers, you know, they're not one all, they're very different. One all does not. And you don't want one thing fits all. You want to be able to be open and broad and understand that there are signs of illness. Sexual abuse is a relationship with trauma, right? It's rational with trauma that affects people with coping in very different ways, you know. So sexual abuse is a rational trauma that affects people's core beliefs about themselves and the world. So when you think about that, like being a survivor, being a person that's really working with survivorship or making sure that they understand their sexual abuse in stages, right? Understanding that it's a core belief that they have on themselves or the world. Healing from sexual abuse occurs within the context of reparative relationships. Reparative relationships is very important. So when we think about that, it's just like restorative justice, right? You want to repair a relationship. So survivors, I know the ones that I've worked with in the past, and maybe you guys, you know, feel free to jump in the chat and talk about that. When working with survivors of sexual abuse, when it comes to the reparative relationship, sometimes it's not there. They like tap out. They don't want a reparative relationship with the person that assaulted them or that is their abuser. Like that's the last thing they want is a reparative relationship. But again, with the trauma work that we're doing and that our clients are doing, you know, once we get them to recognize more of that healing work begins from within, the reparative work with other relationships can start as well, but it's the individual one we have to help them with just so they can see their core beliefs in the world is faced in one way, you know, as a victim. People have hurt them, people have abused them, especially when you put disabilities involved. You know, I know Team Teal personally, we've done work with deaf unity across the board, you know, and I've been grateful to be able to do work with them. But again, reparative relationships, collaborative relationships, understanding that the core beliefs in one survivor might be completely different for someone else. So you want to be able to show them different ways of healing, different ways of accepting themselves, not the act of violence that happened, not at all. But a reparative relationship could be priceless for a survivor because sometimes that reparative relationship can go to something else, you know, substance abuse, mental, you know, abuse of, you know, themselves, harming themselves. We got to make sure that we understand that. And I know you guys probably do, but I just want to make sure that I reiterate that a little bit more. Reparative relationships. A lot of times you might deal with survivors that's had incest, you know, going on in their family, and they haven't been able to communicate it to other people. So reparative relationships, how do you repair that? So everything I just talked about, it comes from Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, 2004. I want to make sure we give them a shout out. So again, healing through relationships. And again, I want to reiterate that we are a lot of the times the first responders. So with the trauma work, just make sure that you be adaptive. Be adaptive to your response. Be adaptive to the way that you deal with different survivors and different clients, you know, rather than just looking at the signs of their illness, because you never really know. Okay. Next slide. Okay, here we getting into it now. Barriers of treatment. I actually put on one of my notes. We're going to unwrap this. Wow. Okay, so the reason why I picked this illustration that you guys see here is because it just gives like barriers, like slits in the picture, just to let you know that, it's a whole person, but they might have a problem getting to the next step or the next level. There might be something hindering them. There might be a barrier. There might be a misunderstanding, miscommunication. We're going to talk about it though, okay? So barriers to treatment. Although much has been learned about the biological of mental health, and these discoveries have increased options for managing symptoms of mental health and disabilities, right? Significant treatment barriers exist. So significant barriers, biology, mental health. So what they're saying is it biological why things don't work together, right? We're still learning it. A lot of what we're learning now is still just best practice. There isn't a lot of evidence-based work around it, not that I could find. Understanding public and mental health systems. So first things first, is everyone in the community aware that there is mental health systems? Put in the chat if you know where you can look or you can Google to find mental health systems in your community. Because I know for a fact, I know about MCFI, that's here in Milwaukee. That's the Milwaukee Center for Independence. I know in Madison, they have Deaf Unity. Yeah, just throughout the county. So again, you can always do a Google search, but that's very important just to know the mental health systems. They're an hour away from your town, right, Amber? Okay, so that would bring a barrier, right? An hour away from my home. Afford transportation, right? Okay. If you have SNAP benefits, great. Some good resources in the chat. You're not really sure. See? Okay, yeah. So some of us aren't really sure. And working in working in the SA and DV community, sometimes it's very difficult to locate where these agencies are. So let's be mindful that this can be a barrier to treatment if clients in the community don't know or understand where public health systems are. So that would be something that we should talk about more. We should publicize that more. We should share more resources of those on our social media, on our different platforms, because it's very important. If we don't know, then how will we know? You do better when you know better. And people in our community, they don't know, especially if they have disabilities or mental health, because people treat them so unfairly. We'll talk about those things like we are right now. Language barriers are always big. Yes, we're going to talk about that with diverse communities, but thank you very much. Mental health, yes, they need help. They need more. They need more translators as well. And they need more in Black and brown and rural communities, because it's very difficult for them to get to those resources. And instead of it being another person that is, hurt or victimized in the community or gunned down, we remember how different things happen with people with mental health issues, and people don't understand how to deal with them. So let's be mindful that we need to educate more in our community around where these specific places are. Yes, of course, Tiffany, 211 is a great place to start. All you got to do is put in your address and let them know where you are, and they will help you. And even better yet, once you get the information, put it in your agencies. You never know, or put it on your website, since everything's like, COVID free. But if you have a place where you can put materials, put it out there so people will know. It's very important that they know that they're there. Substance abuse places, especially that works around survivors. So another barrier could be lack of affordable health insurance policies covering mental health treatment, just like we were just talking about. Some carry it and some don't. So it's very important that when we work with clients who aren't signed up for health insurance or who aren't aware of the mental health systems, maybe take a little extra 5 minutes. Take an extra 5 minutes out of your day, do a little Google search, maybe help them out with that healthcare form, or talk to someone on the phone if they need a prescription, just like help them go along their way, because sometimes they have, not enough access to get the help that they need. And if they're in your space, do all that you can. Like they will be forever grateful if you took just a couple extra minutes to help them or introduce them to where you sign up for healthcare, or where you sign up for SNAP benefits, or where you sign up for different things like that, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course they're in a depression because the world thinks less of them. So if you can give them a couple of extra minutes just looking into the smallest things, asking them, do they have their grocery list for the week? Working with people with disabilities and people with mental health and substance abuse is good. They just want to know that you're checking up on them, that you care. And if that's not what you do, you can just do it during group, but making sure that they know that affordable healthcare and insurance is there for them to get, and introduce it to them. Introduce it in a group setting, maybe, if so it won't be so individualized, because sometimes that's a big deal too, making something a big deal for a person that already has mhm. Lack of training and addressing core issues such as trauma associated with DV and SA. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like looking at what you guys are writing and trying to look at my PowerPoint at the same time. So I'm sure Robin is going to catch all that good stuff, all the questions, and we'll take care of that. I'm just trying to focus. So, excuse. So again, lack of training in addressing core issues such as trauma associated with DV and SA is very important, because again, say if you have a client, or say if you have a person that comes into your office, and say you only work with teens, and for this reason you said we're gonna take you on, and you do, and the trauma associated with them is also DV and SA, but they don't have insurance, and they don't know anything about the mental health system, and they just so happen to find your agency because one of their siblings go there, right? So lack of training in addressing core issues such as trauma associated with DV and SA, saying that some agencies don't specifically deal with DV and SA around disability or mental health, not specifically, but there are some agencies. So the reason why I felt like the barriers to treatment that I am presenting to you guys today is so important is because that needs to be the core issue for some individuals you're dealing with. They might come to your agency because maybe they have a different disability, but if they're a survivor of DV or SA, they need to know that there is a specific place that they're going to go to that is trained on addressing those core issues. So if I'm a person with a disability, I would reach out to the Milwaukee Center for Independence, right? And I would look for a support group that's associated with DV and SA. And if they didn't have that, I would ask them to refer me to someone. Or if you had a client in your office, you would maybe do a referral to another agency that deals with addressing those core issues, because training is important with dealing with those issues, because you can't just start teaching about trauma just because you feel like it. There needs to be training associated with the core issues when working with any individuals, especially those that have disabilities and mental health. Restrictions on medication, that's huge. Going back up to the top, if you don't know about mental health systems, you might not know about mental health insurance, so you're probably not going to be able to get medication, or if you do, there's so much red tape, you know. Even when I go to Walgreens, I see like the signs on the wall that says if you're getting specific medicine, you need an ID, you need to give blood, you got to bring a dog. There's like all these other things, right, that you got to do to get specific medication. And sometimes a person that is a recovering person that has a substance abuse issue, they might have forgot something at home. They might have left their wallet. They might have left, so if they're restricted to get certain medicine, they might revert back to, getting something from the street, something, a different way to cope if they're restricted on that medication. So we want to make sure if we're working with individuals that don't know about insurance, don't know about systems, don't know about, where specific agencies are that deal with DV and SA and trained in those areas, they're going to run into these barriers. Relative, a lack of long-term therapeutic services. So what do you mean by that? Like say if a person needs more, like say for instance, they need like 6 sessions, or they need to stay with you for 120 days versus 60 days. You might want to look into that. Sometimes different places or different agencies, they don't have space for lengthy, outpatient, services. They don't have a lot of that. But we want to make sure that we create those spaces for long-term therapeutic services. Sometimes people need to stay with us for 2-3 years on different payment plans, on different ways that they can, sometimes they need to be on different budgets to make sure that they can afford the care if they don't have public health insurance or any kind of insurance to pay that. Even be willing to do a sliding scale, maybe have them do some things around the office if they can't afford it and they need to have longer therapeutic services. There's so many different options that we can use, I believe, as people, where this barriers of treatment doesn't even have to be a slide, like we can just get rid of that slide and work at getting these things done, work at getting these barriers off the list, just as people as general. We're probably not going to do it today or tomorrow, but I believe if we all work together as a collective for the betterment of the people that we're trying to help to have a healthier lifestyle, or to feel just like themselves and feel wanted and feel appreciated and feel like they're a part of society. Maybe take a look at a couple of these things and push it in your agency, even if that's just, these are the 5 agencies in my community that is specifically addressed to the core issues of trauma, DV, and SA for disability and mental health, along with substance abuse. That's something you can just put together, or put together possibly a list of public and private mental health systems. Just an idea. These are only ideas, just different things that that they supply in the S.A.F.E curriculum as a barrier to treatment, and to be mindful of these things when working with clients. It might not be your agency, it might not be you, but the last agency they were with, they let them go before they felt like their therapeutic services were ended. Or maybe the last person they worked with, they didn't tell them about affordable healthcare and treatment, so understand that, and not to take it always personal, guys, because again, sometimes people get beat down so much, and when they finally get to you, they're just done, so they might not want to be the nicest, but they're surely not the rudest, because they're there or they want your help. So be mindful of the barriers when it comes to treatment, and understand it's going to be different for everyone, but just do your part. If any of these things you see you want to do more, just do it. You don't have to do a PSA about it. You don't have to tell anyone. You can just start doing it more, start trying it more in your agency, or if there's more you want to add, feel free to add, because again, there are more, but we want to be able to close those spaces, right? So everybody can feel together, so everybody can feel like they're, on this treatment together, rather than, everybody has barriers like you see in this illustration that I provided for you. So next slide, please. So now we're getting to the part, I believe someone earlier had said something about language barriers. So yeah, we're gonna get into that here. Feel free to pose all your questions around any of this that I'm gonna talk about within this diverse community section. And again, I was very intentional on the way that I put this PowerPoint together. One, because you gotta bring it, because I thought that I knew that I would be doing somewhat of a teaching aspect. And I put together this graphic in here because diverse communities, they're all different, right? But they're all trying to meet up to the same, we're all trying to get there, right? We're all trying to get there, but there's a lot of different roads that many of us have to take to get to the same place, called peace. So the diverse communities, we all know these all too well. Distrust and racism. So yeah, hit that guy right at the top, because that's huge in just about all communities. When it comes to distrust, nobody wants to feel distrust. Everybody wants to feel trust. Everybody wants to feel a part of something. Everybody wants to feel that whatever I say to you in this space, whatever agency it is that I'm at or a part of, I want to make sure that I trust this, right? So whomever you are that's working with a diverse community, we need to make sure that we're keeping the trust in the front of what we're saying, in the front of our demeanor, in the front of our approach, because distrust and racism are two huge things that people of color, of all colors, women and men, they face that every day. You know what I'm saying? So why not be the opposite of that, right? Why not be trustworthy, right? Why not be inclusive, right? Because we don't want to add no more distrust and racism to what we already got going on in just the world, in totality, period. So diverse communities, they're put up against distrust and racism, and that's one of those pitfalls. Lack of LGBTQ providers. It's huge, right? We have a huge community. We have the LGBTQ community is so big. This year they're devoting it again, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, to LGBTQ, and I'm really happy about that. I'm excited about that, because again, we need to continuously be inclusive as a people, as a community, as a mission, as a nation. So lack of LGBTQ providers in diverse communities, even if you have them on a hotline, right? I think I heard not too long ago, Diverse and Resilience is now a little bit up north now. So that's awesome that people in different parts of Wisconsin are attached to Diverse and Resilience more, because they're LGBTQ specific provider in our communities. So let's get more on board with hiring those individuals of LGBTQ community. If not, you need to have them on speed dial. You need to be able to call them. You need to be able to Zoom them in. You need to have them as a resource. You need to have them as someone, as an ally, if you don't have them as an employee, because you don't want to miss out on another life being saved because you don't have the adequate staff, or the LGBTQ center, or there's a few more, but be mindful that we should employ LGBTQ providers more. Bias assessments, that happens all the time. Sometimes people come into your space, they need to do an assessment for XYZ treatment plan, and you just go down the line. It's like, yeah, blah 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 blah. Excuse me. I know me personally, like, even if I go to like a McDonald's, it's like, I will like my frappe with respect, please. Excuse me. I do not care. No biasness, no bias assessment. If you got to go down that assessment, making clear judgment, ask them those questions, stress those things. Don't make bias assessments about people. Right when you see somebody, you just judge them right off the bat, or you just know how they're going to answer questions, or which box they're going to fit in. No, scratch the biasness. No bias assessments. Just Figure it out as it goes. Ask the correct questions, wait for their response. That's very important, because again, where do we learn this bias assessment, right? From dealing with so many people, right? I think that's just in life. When you deal with the same and the same and the same, sometimes it gets repetitive, and then you just have this biasness and you don't even know it, you know? So be mindful of how things could just shift, and how it could just push you to become more biased in different ways, or understand that that's another form of a barrier for diverse communities. Bias assessments. Limitations of Western focus. More focus on family and community than self, right? Some people are very specific, right, when it comes to their culture and how they maneuver. Like, Western thinking is more about family and community, right? Some cultures are more about self and how we need to work towards those things, right? And how we need to understand a lot of communities are focused on family and community. They love their family and community. A lot of people in that's focused on self, they might see things differently, right? They might be able to manage things differently. But if you look at some cultures, you know, Asian culture, some people in the Latin community, you know, everything's family, you know, everything's community, for us, by us, you know. Even in the Black community, you know, it's all about family. You know, you don't want to say this, you don't want to disrespect Big Mama, you don't want, you know, you don't want to do this thing, you know, you don't want to move out too fast, you want to get married, you know. It's all about community, it's all about block party, it's all about togetherness, it's all about village, you know. And a lot of times in the Western community, it's about self, you know, it's about, you know, the hierarchy, you know, it's about finances, it's about me. But in a lot of different cultures, it's about family and community, and you don't want to miss that mark, focusing on what we're so used to, which is self. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I talk too much. I hope I'm doing good. Language barriers, that's another part. Diverse community. I believe someone brought that up earlier. Yes, we need Spanish speakers, right? We need Hmong speakers, you know. I go to a church where they have a huge community of Ethiopian community, you know, so African descent, you know, we really have to open up that language barrier, right? Because it's not individualized, you know, like it's not one-sided. Like, we have to be open and understand that's just like, you can't say different things to certain cultures because they're going to flip out. Like, they don't speak the same language, you know, so that language barrier is there, which, you know, will bring a discommunication, you know, if you don't understand that there's that language barrier and how you need to get through to them. And that's why our cell phones are so important, because sometimes even if you're on a one-on-one with a client, you can type it into your phone and it will show up in any language. Yep. I think it's called like Google Translation or something like that. But I would recommend something of that nature if you're dealing with someone from a different language, a different culture that you don't understand. And if you don't have an interpreter, if you don't have another human being there, utilize what you have, you know, or maybe have them get their phone out and type in what they're saying in their language and print it, make sure that it sends in English. Whatever works, it's all about it working, right? Okay, Google Translate, that is right. Exactly. Very helpful for many languages because it's very important. Yep, talking services, all that good stuff. Thank you guys in the chat. Make sure you check on that. They're dropping some hot fire. Language barriers. There's a way around that. We just put it in the chat right now. There's a way around the language barrier. If you're the only person there and you don't have an interpreter, or if you don't have someone there to help you, use Google. Utilize these phones. They should be smart. Get it? Smart. So utilize these cell phones so you can help out your clients when it comes to those language barriers. Cultural alternatives. There's that. People are into different things, holistic things. They're into more things that's more based around their culture, you know, and we got to be open to that. We can't like shun away from how different people deal with different things. Like we have to understand, okay, Samantha, teach me about that, or tell me about that, or tell me what you do in your culture around different issues, you know, because we want to make sure that we're specific for those individuals, whatever it is that they need that's specific around their cultural aspect of living. We want to make sure that we're directing it towards that. We don't want to come with our, you know, Western focus or whatever focus we come with. We don't want to come with that. We want to ask them. We want to broaden our eyes. We want to understand more, right? It's a big picture. So instead of, you like I give you guys an A and a B, right? Instead of, you know, the diverse community and the barriers that goes against that, how about we do these things over here? How about we do these 4 things? How about let's get more creative learning cultural norms of the people you serve. And remember, speak directly to the survivor rather than speaking to a family member or a staff member. Again, with that language barrier, you know, that ties right into that. Use your phone, use Google Translate, use a dictionary, maybe, you know, because again, it shows people from another language as well in another culture. Hey, we also have paperback stuff we can do just in case the Google messes up, you know, like, and then you can learn. You never know. Life is endless. Know how to be courteous in a variety of cultures, right? Greetings in personal space, respect. You know what, guys on the line? I'll help you out. You see me here with this salute? This is a greeting from the African American community. That's how we say hello or goodbye or what's good or you know it or salute, you know. It's just a way of greeting. It's just a really cool way of greeting. And we also, it's always good to respect personal space. Adapt services to fit the need of various groups, which means if you need to adapt something, if you need to change the group sessions, or if you need to maybe change the verbiage or maybe change the services that you have it online, since now COVID is here, if you need to make it more open, more inclusive, friendly, adapt your services to the various groups that you serve, because that's very important that you let them know that you're adapting to the new normal, because things are very new normal. Next slide, please. Thanks, Robin. You're awesome. Thank you. Okay, we're getting there. You guys want to get back in that chat. I could feel it. Recognizing how people cope. Developing resilience is about flexibility and balance. Would you agree? Thumbs up if you agree. Developing resilience is about flexibility and balance. Heavy on the balance. Yes, everybody feel me. Sweet. Okay, so let's keep it hot in the chat. We're not gonna stop there. I'm gonna tie it all in the chat. I know you guys were waiting on that hot fire. So let's get into the chat box. How do you remain flexible and balanced? You good people in that chat, all of y'all that's going crazy. Let me give you a couple of examples. Do you do support groups? Did you got sister circles? Do you go to high yoga? Spending time with yourself? Do you do mani-pedis and always switch up your colors? Do you journal? Do you listen to music? Self-care? Do you do like safe places outside of, you know, where you live? Do you go, like me, I go to the Sherman Phoenix. I love the Sherman Phoenix here in Milwaukee. Like, oh my God, like I love it there. Like that's one of my happy places. It keeps me balanced. And so what do you guys got? Flexibility, flexible work policies. Yep. I listen to music. Yes. Outdoors. Staying out of toxic relationships. Holla, everything toxic. Miss you. Yeah, connecting with groups on Facebook. Yeah, I don't, yeah, that's cool. Cause again, it takes you away from your day to day, right? Like, how about flexibility? How are you guys with being flexible? Let's be honest. How are we about being flexible? Yeah. Taking time. Yeah. Outdoors are good. Flexibility is best. It's best to be flexible. You want to know why? You guys are a part of my flexibility right now, in my balance. Being able to do a PowerPoint and like present it without physical people and like doing it and not even seeing myself. Like I'm really flexible about it. And it's something so awesome that keeps you balanced when you're just always ready for anything, right? Like what keeps you balanced also, self-care, flexibility, being open to new things, new adventures, discovering yourself, learning. Yeah, learning. Whew, isn't it something? It seems like we learn something every day. I know I do, or at least I try to. Sometimes I try to unlearn stuff, but that's a whole nother Zoom on a whole nother summit. But balance, flexibility, learning something. Yep. I feel you on unlearning, right? Yes, 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 yes. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with unlearning. It's best, you know. It helps us. It helps us. It's good with us. It helps with the balance, you know. You know, the balance. There's a balance in life, right? You can't be all of one thing and not, right? You know, like I say, you got to be a little righteous and a little ratchet. You got to roll it all together. You got to be a little funny and then you got to be a little serious. You know, you can't just be one thing. You kind of got to be balanced. It just keeps it balanced. You know, like I love to speak, but I also keep it balanced. I can bring a PowerPoint, right? Like I can bring a PowerPoint. We can teach and learn. We can, you know, get into the curriculum. You know, we can dive into more training, facilitating work, or we can just, you know, just talk and do things in that nature too. So balance is very helpful. And I thank you guys for like chiming in the chat. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we've come here. Look, I gave you guys enough time. So that's just our information with Team Teal. If you guys ever need us or anything like that. But questions, I don't know. I'm sure like Robin's got it all like popping in the chat or somewhat. And we could just, you know, yeah, we have about 15 minutes. I'm excited about that. I wanted to make sure we gave enough time for questions because I wanted everybody to possibly get the questions out if they had any, or maybe if they have comments or something that you grabbed, or if people want to unmute themselves and ask me, whatever's best. We don't have to do it in any particular order. If you want to unmute yourself and ask me questions, if you have them, or comments, I don't mind it. We're all here together.
I'm not sure if folks can unmute because it's a webinar mode. So I think it's more limiting. So definitely, please put any comments, questions in the chat. I had posted that earlier. Amber had asked a question or sort of commented that when she's getting referrals that people will lead with like the label of a mental condition before even saying what the person's name was. And I think she was looking to see if other folks have noticed that as well, and any thoughts on that.
Okay, so was that the was that a question? Is she asking a question? Like,
yeah, I think the question is, do other people notice that as well when they're receiving referrals or talking to other external agencies about folks that they're maybe both serving?
Okay, so anyone in the did anyone in the chat agree or disagree or?
I would say I agree. I work at a legal services agency, but specifically within domestic abuse. So a lot of times when we get referrals from different areas, the label, which is often mental condition or maybe substance abuse issues, is put forward first, almost as a pre-warning. which is pretty problematic.
Exactly. So that's the reason why we're even having this conversation, right? So I think we have the power to change that. If we're the ones creating it, right? If we're the ones creating it, like in systems with the labeling of, you know, like what an individual is diagnosed with, maybe that could be something that we know to be a fact, but we introduce it as, this is Samantha Collier, who also XYZ, right? So I think just like changing the verbiage, I think you still need to make sure that it's known what a person is diagnosed with, yeah, but it's also that they're a person, right? So it's that energy. I believe we all want to see change, right? We all want to see how we deal with individuals, right? Yes, we all want to see how we deal with individuals and how they're a person before their abuse, substance abuse, mental health. You know what I'm saying? So we have the power to change that.
Yeah.
Do you agree or disagree in the chat? That we as people that's doing this work, that's controlling these files, that's letting individuals know what they're diagnosed with, do you believe that we have the power to change the verbiage on how we communicate with them? Just a question, you know, because I think we have more power than we give ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another question. So there are sometimes agencies that are dual agencies that serve survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, and then there are some that are more singular. And so there is one from Natasha saying that she works for a domestic violence specific agency, and there's a separate sexual assault agency in town, and that sometimes the DV agency feels a bit inadequate in helping when there's trauma related to sexual assault, and they're wondering about different types of training that they could get on the trauma for sexual assault and for the healing, which, you know, makes so much sense because so many times it overlaps. Not always, but so many times when somebody is the victim of one, they're also probably the survivor of other types of abuse, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would just say thank you guys again for these questions. And I should have stated from beginning, this is a safe space, always a safe space. Being that I sit on the Commission for DV and SA, we're about to start doing a lot more trainings around sexual assault and around domestic violence and around trafficking. In our commission meetings, we're going to have access to different agencies that have these trainings available around the city and sometimes even around the state. You know, I would say utilize End of Abuse. They're a great agency around training. WCASA is an amazing agency around sexual assault specific. If you're in the city of Milwaukee, the Healing Center, the ASHA Project here in the city of Milwaukee, when it comes to trainings, right? So you want to be able to help a sexual assault survivor that might also be a DV, a domestic violence survivor, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you're into doing a lot of your trainings online, they're here for you too. They're available for you to get. Like I said before, WCASA is a great one. You know, Team Teal, we're here. We can always go with you over some sexual assault, one-on-one trafficking, teen dating violence issues that you might see with facts and numbers and graphs and all that good stuff. But I know for a fact the Office of Violence and Prevention here in the city of Milwaukee is pulling out all kinds of trainings coming this spring and also in the fall. So again, yeah. Hopefully that helped. The commission, again, like I said, the City of Milwaukee Commission for Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. I'm the chairwoman. Please feel free to reach out to us. We can always invite anybody on the line. It's a public monthly meeting. End of Abuse has been there many times. Deaf Unity has been there. Other people on the line has been there as well. It is the city commission. We do a lot of work in the city, but it is always anyone in the state is more than welcome to come. You can always Zoom in. We need and appreciate all the service providers on the line for information like this, right? Trainings like this, so that we can give help not just to the systems, but the individuals that's in the systems. So again, that's the City of Milwaukee DVSA Commission, which all the systems are there. If you guys on the line has never heard of it or seen it or anything like that, yes, like all of us. So you're welcome to come at any time. Yeah. Is there a link? There is a link, and it always comes out from Karen Tyler, probably about a week before our meeting, and it's every third Thursday. Every third Thursday. So this on March 18th, and you guys want me to let you guys in on a little secret? Okay, so March 18th, the first time ever, City of Milwaukee Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Commission. Drum roll, please. We will have the chief of the Milwaukee Police Department, Chief Norman, will be there, and the mayor will be there. March 18th, 2021. It's going to be a big Thursday. A lot of information, a lot of things will be dropped. We're really excited about it. So yeah, shoot me an email. I'll make sure that you get it. Or if you guys want to drop Karen Tyler, K Tyler at citymilwaukee.com, or hit me up. You can go. It's all good. We're here for you. Okay, I'm talking too much, but the 18th, it's really big. All is welcome.
There was another question from Disability Rights Wisconsin asking, how do you advocate for someone with a mental illness who doesn't believe they have a mental illness and feel that the whole world is just gaslighting them?
I would say be creative, and maybe have a mentor or have someone in the agency that has this specific mental health issue, and just have them there, or stream them into a Zoom, maybe take the attention off that person and put it on someone else, that is a leader in the community, that is a mentor, that is or an ally, or another youth, or a college student, or if they're adults. Again, look at some actors or some stars or some people that has the exact same mental health issue, and just look at it in a different light, right? Look at it in a different way, so that it's not directed towards them, but they feel attached. Does that make sense? Like, they feel attached to the person or the thing in some kind of way, that it's not just me having bipolar disorder, right? It's me being a million other teenagers, or it's me being a million other 20 or 30-year-olds dealing with this. How will I be able to cope with this? How will Samantha cope with bipolar, instead of how is bipolar coping with Samantha? I don't know if that makes sense, but
I think that definitely makes sense.
I would say change the way we speak it, and then start interacting more people with specific mental issues or specific substance issues. Because if you're not it, you need to get somebody that is it, and have you guys in the same space, because they trust you. So if they're trusting you, you just got to build on that, right?
Yeah.
There
was another question on how to share changing verbiage, changing labels, how to share that information specifically with teens.
How to share it? Mm-hmm. Like I said before, okay, say for instance, I'm just thinking hypothetically, say if you do like a group, like working with teens and youth in a group, make it like a group assignment. And take some labels, right? Take schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, drunkenness, alcoholicness, and ask them questions. What is another word for this? What is another word for alcoholic? What is another word for crazy? What is another word for bipolar disorder? What is another word for the depression? What is another word? What's another word for it? Ask them. I wish I had a crystal ball, on how to do it, but I know it can be done. if we just try to look at it from a different lens, right? If they learn more using the computer, Google something, I'm sure there's something online, or create a small little maybe monkey survey and print it out if they're not really internet or computer savvy, and do it together. Make it like a public service announcement. Make it like a big deal. Attention always works. In some cases, I don't know, but maybe make it a big deal. This is what we're doing this month. This is what we're focusing on. We're focusing on another word for drunkenness. We're focusing on another word than ADHD. Thank you so much for zooming in with me. I hope that you walked away with something around recognizing the power that we have to change the labels around the people that we serve in our community. And thank you, and continue on to thrive and continue on to do great things. And I hope you had an amazing time with me and all the other workshops and all the other keynote. I think this was an amazing 3 days. So thank you. Again, we're Team Teal 365. Anything you need from us, please don't hesitate to reach out. Yeah, so be kind to yourself, and we believe you.